Shalom Uvracha. After the plague of Arov, of wild animals, Paro comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, hey, you can serve Hashem. You're free to serve your God. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, well, you know what? We will serve Hashem, but we won't do it here because it's inappropriate to serve Hashem in Mitzrayim. Rather, we'll travel 3 days. Derech shloshes yomim nelech bamidbar. We'll travel 3 days in the desert, in the wilderness, and there we'll serve Hashem as He instructed us. And the question is, why do we need this story, this episode of 3 days travel, when the connotation is that after these 3 days, we'll come back, we'll return to Mitzrayim? Perhaps that's why Paroi, after the Jewish people, the Israelites, actually leave Egypt, he chases after them after these 3 days go by, when he sees that they're not coming back. And perhaps he was actually expecting them to come back, because that's what Moshe Rabbeinu said. We'll go 3 days and then we'll come back. Why? Why does he need to create this impression, which seems to be a false impression? Hashem can do anything. He can take us out. We don't need to soft talk Paroi to persuade him, to convince him to let us out just for 3 days, and then to trick him by traveling on towards the promised land, which is one of the reasons why Hashem redeems us, to fulfill the promise to the forefathers of giving them the land of Canaan, the promised land. So clearly there's no real intention of going back to Mitzrayim. Why then do we have this promise or this idea of going out for 3 days and coming back? I think the reason for this is because the redemption from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, came in 2 stages. There are 2 distinct elements to the redemption. One of them is negating the exile, negating the yoke of Mitzrayim upon us that prevented us from serving our God, from serving Hashem. And that's represented by the first 3 expressions of redemption that the Pasuk uses. There are altogether 4 expressions of redemption. The first 3 negate the exile, the yoke of exile. They are V'hoitzesi, I shall take them out; V'hitzalti, I shall save them; and V'go'alti, I shall redeem them. So that's negating the exile. Then there's a 4th expression which is positive, not just relieving them of the exile, but also taking them to me. V'lokachti, I shall take the nation unto myself. And that implies everything about Hashem being with us, supervising us, and giving us His presence in the tabernacle, in the mikdash, and so on. So these are 2 stages, and they are 2 distinct elements of the redemption. So Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking truth. He was referring, however, to the first stage alone. What would have happened had Paroi agreed? Go 3 days and come back. I imagine we would have gone out for 3 days. We would have come back. And then the final redemption would have occurred at a 2nd stage in some other way. We don't know, because Paroi didn't agree, and ultimately the entire redemption, both stages, happened together. But nevertheless, those 2 stages are distinct. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was correct, was right, to speak to Paro about leaving 3 days in order that we'll be able to serve Hashem freely, without any yoke, without any pressures and anxieties and fear, to serve our God. And then the 2nd stage will come separately. And these 2 stages are true even of today. Even today, there are 2 stages of redemption. Kimei teischam me'eret Mitzrayim ar'enu leflois. The Pasuk tells us that the final redemption will come in the same way as the initial redemption from Mitzrayim. And there are 2 stages. The one stage we're already at, and that's the stage of negating the yoke of the nations that don't allow us to serve Hashem. There's nowhere in the world, virtually nowhere in the world, where Jews are not free to serve their God, to serve Hashem. We're even free to move to Israel, to the Holy Land, and to serve Hashem from here, meaning the yoke of the nations that prevented us for so many generations, for so many centuries, from serving Hashem freely, is no longer the same as it used to be. It's freed us. We're free of that yoke. We're able to serve Hashem as our desires. However, The second stage of V'lakachti eschem li la'am, I shall take you to be my nation, that still requires completion. Because even though we're free to serve Hashem, and even though by the grace of God we're in a remarkable place in terms of our situation along the historical timeline, but nevertheless we still don't have the revelation of Hashem upon us. We still don't have the enshrinement of the Shekhinah, the divine presence in the Mikdash. We still don't have the speech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, to His people in a direct and open and revealed way. And in order to reach that, we have to make the most of what we have. We have to, of course, be grateful for the freedom that we have to serve Hashem, for the freedom that we have from the yoke of the nations. But in addition to that, we need to use that freedom in order to augment, in order to develop the path toward that final revelation of the Shekhinah. And we know what that path entails. It entails the unity of the people, to quit fighting and to start working together, the different groups among the Jewish people that need to cohese and to work together. And of course, it means improving and augmenting and increasing the level, the spiritual level, the religious level of ourselves and of the entire Jewish people, in order that we should be ready to receive that light, to receive that revelation of Hashem upon us. May those days come speedily in our days. We should all have a wonderful Shabbos.